Welcome to Careers Under Construction. I'm Justice Peterson. On today's episode, we speak to Tom Sparrow. Tom is the first ever Chief Construction Officer for the City of Winnipeg and the first appointed in Canada. We speak to Tom about his move to Winnipeg, how he plans on tackling some of the city's largest infrastructure problems by implementing AI, and why you should never stop learning. Please enjoy Tom Sparrow. Tom, most of our guests I have the pleasure of getting to know over a few years. A lot of them are local city people that I already know. This is obviously our first time meeting. It's a pleasure to meet you. Welcome to the studio and thanks for joining us.
Hey, thanks so much, Justice. I really appreciate the invitation.
Absolutely. So, why Winnipeg? Like, have you been here before? Because, correct me if I'm wrong, you're coming from BC, right?
Coming from BC, born and raised in Calgary.
Okay.
I'll be honest, my first university I attended when I was 17 from Calgary was at University of Western Ontario in London.
Nice.
So I used to drive over. First stop was always Brandon. And I'll be honest, second was to beeline out of there and head towards Northern Ontario, getting towards London. So I didn't intentionally avoid Winnipeg, but I would drive around the perimeter. So I've been here a few times over the last 15 or 20 years when I worked for the federal government. But other than that, I have not spent a lot of time here until March 30th.
Wow, that's a long drive from Calgary all the way to London.
It was a long drive, 3 days usually, and I had it down to a science, so I knew exactly where I'd stop every time because I did that for a few years, so figured it out. But Brandon was always my first stop.
Nice.
So
I can relate. I'm from Regina originally. Went to school at McMaster, so I did that drive very similar to you. Lots of times through Northern Ontario, where you feel like you can't see any more Canadian Shield than you already have.
You've seen enough, but I found as soon as I hit Sudbury, then you'd head south.
Right.
So I was always gunning for Sudbury because I knew as soon as I started heading south, I could get on the 400 and then the 401 into London. So
that's right.
I remember those years, a few years ago.
So you're the first ever Chief Construction Officer of the City of Winnipeg.
That's correct. What
does that title mean to you, like on a personal level and professional level?
Well, I think personally, I feel very proud that the city, has taken me in as the first Chief Construction Officer. I think it actually is the first in Canada as well. I've been told that a lot of other municipalities are actually looking at this very position to see if it aligns with some of the work they need to do within those cities. I feel honored. In my career, of course, I'm kind of coming to an end. I've only got about 5 or 10 years to go, but I think it's a very, very important position. And I'm hoping to provide a lot of good guidance and wisdom from the years that I've worked in industry to the city and to the community and to the province.
Amazing. Okay. So tell me, what does the CCO do on like a day-to-day basis? Like, take today, for example. What did you do this morning when you woke up?
When I woke up?
Yeah.
Well, my day starts about 4 or 5 in the morning because I'm kind of a light sleeper, so I'm always pre-planning and I keep on track of my emails and what's going on in the internet as far as projects. So my life is my work, and quite frankly, so I'm constantly, and I mean this constantly, reading through LinkedIn, through other websites, through different news broadcasts, the BBC, the CBC, into the Telegraph over in England, and other news agencies. So I'm constantly reading about funding issues, about worldwide issues, and about projects that are going to impact the work I do. Because everything that I do in relation to public infrastructure can be impacted by so many different things. And so that usually is what I first do, but I'm always in the back of my mind planning my day, And of course, I have two iPhones, so I've got a number of schedules, but I'm constantly updating that to see exactly who I'm going to meet, when I'm going to meet them, the topics we're going to meet on, because I want to pre-plan. I don't want to waste any time. And for today, I spent majority of the morning actually working internally on some of the project work that we're doing within the city. But I also had a major lunch meeting, for example, today with Colliers. And I do a lot of networking, and I'm, of course, new to the city, so the networking is literally straight up because I want to get to know not only the people internally within the city, but externally, our business partners, contractors, the organizations that are directly related to successfully delivering public infrastructure projects in the city. And as we know, the City of Winnipeg takes up quite a large component of the province. And so there's our other partners like Centerport or the province itself or even the federal government that play a huge role in what we're doing as well. So all of those players are really important for me to network with and understand what their issues are and obviously look at opportunities in partnership with them on not only maintaining but developing new projects for the City of Winnipeg.
Yeah, that makes sense. Absolutely. I think that there was probably some people surprised of the fact that they brought in this position from outside of province rather than bringing in somebody that's already, knows the local market, knows the local trades, the developers, the city, right? And so I think, what you just mentioned about like being a natural networker like you are, is probably a very important piece of that position, obviously.
Yes, and I think in building on what you're saying, because a number of people have told me this, is they were actually looking for actually the opposite. They wanted somebody from the outside, we'll call it outside. It's a term we used to use in Yukon, you were from the outside, but anyway, funny. But they wanted somebody that was bringing in fresh blood, new ideas, new networks, different projects, different opportunities that an individual like myself might see from being outside of the province. And so that actually has been brought up quite a few times with some of the folks that are here. They wanted to bring somebody in from outside for those very reasons. So I'm hoping I can deliver.
Awesome. Well, I'm sure you're well on your way. Can you tell us a little bit about like your path here? Like how did you hear about this position and so forth?
Well, as I think I mentioned earlier, LinkedIn is a huge program or service in my toolkit, and in addition to that is Indeed. Now, I oversee large, big public infrastructure projects across Canada and have for years, and so that usually always is with representing the owner's representative, which is usually a government agency or department. But I'm always under contract. So I'm constantly looking at RFPs to see what other opportunities might be out there, and I'm also looking at other projects to see how well they're doing. In the case of this position, I was actually being headhunted for 2 large hospital projects in Ontario. And then through Indeed, which I keep a very close eye on, this project position came up, and I looked at it, and I looked at what they were describing and what they were looking for, and I'm really one that loves a good challenge, always up for a challenge. And I thought, from my perspective, I also like giving back. And one of the things in public infrastructure versus private is, when I get up in the morning, I look myself in the mirror, I always look to see what I can do to help others and to enhance and build on the projects we're building. And we're building legacy projects. It's not just bricks and mortar, which is a term I've used for years and years. When we invest this kind of money in these projects, we're looking at the educational systems. We're looking at the different services that we can provide. We're looking at how we can help with the local economy, with the local community, with the local neighborhood, the local organizations. That might be the local chamber or the Lions Club or the Rotary Club. I'm constantly looking at how that investment is going to benefit everybody within the community itself. It's not just about putting up a building. And so I get very excited when I see about those opportunities, and these are some of the issues that were raised with me through Indeed, through the posting that they had presented. And I thought, for a person at my age and in life and finishing off things, as I said, I like to give back. And I thought this would be a great way to help the city of Winnipeg, the communities within Winnipeg, and I think to help finish off my career.
Interesting. That's definitely not how I would have expected you to say. Like, you saw it on Indeed, you applied. Like, it's not often an individual of your caliber, your seniority, your experience level would just apply on Indeed and fall into, the hiring person's lap, right? They must have been, obviously saw your resume come through and been like overjoyed with somebody like yourself. But that's very interesting. Now, you mentioned earlier, you were talking about how you were being headhunted for like large-scale hospital projects in Ontario. Obviously, that's part of your background, right? Like,
Yes.
You've done large-scale healthcare facilities, transportation infrastructures in various provinces and territories around Canada. Tell us a little bit about like some of the larger projects you've worked on that got you to where you are today.
Well, when I first started in public, in the public realm, which was back in about 1991, I joined the Yukon government. I was born and raised in Calgary, but there was an opportunity that came up there, and I'm quite an adventurer. And my father actually had put the first drilling rig above the Arctic Circle back in '61, so I always had an interest for the North. So initially, I went up there, and I worked for the Yukon government for a few years, and then I worked for the federal government, and I looked after all of the highway operations, the building development, procurement, emergency management from in northern BC and Yukon for about 12 years. By 2008, though, I sort of decided it was time to move on, and my first major infrastructure project I applied on was at that time, and that was, in those dollars, was $302 million Fort St. John Hospital residential care project. So that was my first foray into big infrastructure projects where I was the chief project officer. In today's dollars, that project would be worth around $1.5 billion or $1.5 billion. Wow. But since then, I went on and I did the Iqaluit International Airport, so that was a $450 million in 2012. I was involved in early procurement of that. And then I was asked to take on the role of managing one project with two hospitals, which was quite unique. And that was called the North Island Hospitals Project in the latter part of 2012. And that was on Vancouver Island. Okay. And that one came in at 2012 numbers of $606 million. And so today it'd be a little north of $2 billion for that one. Wow. And then from there I went on and I did the Royal Columbian Hospital for quite a few years, finishing off phase one. And then from that, I actually branched out and got into secondary schools and also providing advisory and guidance to the Auditor General of Canada. And so I've done a lot of advisory work with the Department of Education, with the Department of Health, within the British Columbia government, and then also assisting SaskBuild in some of the work they were doing on some of their hospital projects in BC, and then also provided some guidance on some projects in Alberta. So I've kind of had a splash in many areas, and I think the other thing was what I've been actively engaged with for many years is a lot of public speaking, attending conferences and speaking throughout North America and in parts of Europe and England on various factors and essences of delivering public infrastructure projects.
Wow. That's quite the career you've had. So lots of commercial buildings work, institutional work, transportation infrastructure on both the private and the public sector. Working for, you said the Yukon government? Right?
I've worked for the, on the public sector side, I've worked for the Yukon government, British Columbia, the provincial government there, the federal government, of course,
right,
and now for the municipal government. I also worked with the regional districts. They have a different level of governance in BC where there's regional districts that are also involved in governance around a municipality, and I did some guidance for them as well. Now, on the private sector side, while I was actually doing one of my secondary school projects on the Vancouver Island, I was approached by an Australian company and actually designed and delivered 2 data centers, large institutional data centers in the middle of BC, which is a lot of fun.
Wow.
And we were dealing with about 250 megawatts of power there in 3 different locations. So I got a little slice of that as well.
So reporting into like city council, the mayor, this is nothing new to you.
No,
then?
no, and I think one of the other reasons for that is, again, as we deliver these big projects, it's important to communicate with all the different stakeholders, even whether they are invested in the project or not. And so on all my big projects, I've always made a point of about every 6 months, I would meet with mayor and council within the community we were building these facilities in to give them a clear understanding of what we're doing, whether were there any issues, what the impacts were, what maybe some of the local folks in the neighborhood and the community were complaining about, because usually you don't hear a lot of good things when we do something. We hear all the negative. And I'm big firm believer in a good defense is a strong offense. And so, very, very important to get out there and communicate and share that information on the pros and the cons of what you're dealing with all of the various stakeholders in a community, which also included, of course, mayor and council.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I'm glad you brought that point up, like the topic of communication, being open, being transparent to all stakeholders across a project. I think one of the reasons that the city, and I might be wrong here, but in my perspective, is one of the reasons the city wanted to bring in this type of new position is like there's no secret that there was some scandal in Winnipeg construction in the past, right? Before your time here, the Winnipeg police headquarters was riddled with corruption scandal, news headlines. I think it's still unsettled at this point. But like, what's your take on transparency and communication to the taxpayers of this city?
Oh, it's full transparency. I strongly believe in that. I don't think we should be, if we're in the middle of negotiations, say in a procurement, and we're dealing with hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars, we can't share what we're doing at that time because, of course, we're negotiating, and it's like playing poker. You don't want to give up your trump cards when you're dealing with who your adversary is or who you're trying to make a deal with. But other than that, without question, it's paramount that we share as much information about a project as we feasibly and I guess effectively can. Which means to me, again, as I said earlier, the presentations with municipal governments is one area, but there's other layers too. I mean, in our case, I certainly want to make sure that we have an excellent relationship with the province, and wherever we are building these facilities, there's always potential issues with these big projects to impact, the roads, maybe the noise, maybe the light pollution, maybe the air quality. And so I always like to have quarterly updates with the neighborhood or the community on any one of our projects to hear exactly what their concerns are and bring the right people in to be able to answer those questions.
And how do you go about having those types of like meetings with local residents? Like, is it kind of more like a town hall meeting? Is it something that you host a town hall and have people from the neighborhood come? Like, how does that work? Because I haven't ever been a part of something like that before.
Boy, it's a lot of fun. Yeah. And there's a variety of different ways we can do it. We could do, say, a community brown bag lunch.
Right.
We could do a neighborhood get-together in a small community hall. We could go a little larger and maybe have, if there's an educational institution neighborhood in the area, we could borrow maybe one of their classrooms and one of their larger classrooms. I usually like to speak on TV or radio, and in the past I've had television stations that'll come up. They'll come by and we'll do a walk around on the site, and they'll be in their PPE, personal protective equipment, like we are.
Yep.
But I'll walk the site with them, and we'll bring along a construction site superintendent, and we'll talk about the progress that we're doing on the site. The other thing I like to do once the project is well away on site and there's enough of a building up there is we'll invite some of the key people that are part of that, the government layers within that community to walk the site with us. So we could bring 10 or 12 people that are influential in that community that are recognized by the community that can come in, and they will show them the construction and how the site is being progressed. and then they can share that information with the community. The other thing that I like doing is having different committees. So accessibility committee, for example. Now, that was something we introduced in BC, but you have a lot of people that have accessibility issues. And a lot of times, unfortunately, building code requires us to do what I call is the bare minimum. The width of a handicap ramp.
Right.
Have you ever tried wheeling somebody up and down a handicap ramp based on building code? I mean, you can barely get up the ramp. So we want to ensure that, when we design these facilities, they meet the needs of all of the citizens. And so we used to have accessibility, for example, accessibility committees. And then, again, once the project was well enough along and it was safe enough, we would actually have them be able to walk the site so they could point out any design issues or flaws we might have. As we build projects out, just backing up from that, we create what's called mock-up rooms. So we mock up what a room might look like, and we will bring in these special purpose folks that have got an understanding of maybe what an accessibility issue is, for example, and they can point out to us what, say, some of our design flaws might be before we've even built the site. So there's all these different aspects of designing and building a project that you want to incorporate into the project. So transparency is absolutely paramount.
Wow. You seem like you have a very hands-on approach. For somebody in a senior advisory type of position who's clearly a visionary, you're able to take a step back, look at the big picture, and almost probably picture it before it's even started. You can also zoom in, and you kind of seem like you get in the weeds and get all the way down into the pre-construction with the teams, like the consultants, the contractors. How are you able to do everything?
Well, I people always ask me this question, and I say I manage the balls in the air, okay? And I want to make sure the balls stay in the air. So I know a little bit about everything, but I rely on my experts, my consultants, my specialists to provide that in-depth detail in each of those areas. I'm counting on them. Now, I've been around long enough that I can certainly ask a lot of questions, and I certainly have a lot of background and knowledge in those areas, but it's important that you do. I think in a person in my position, you need to be able to balance both. And I'll be honest with you. I mean, there's nothing better for me is throwing on my PPE and walking the site and talking to the folks that are actually building our projects. I think that there's so much joy, and I find talking to them, the pride they demonstrate in what they're doing. And what is even better, I find, is ensuring we maximize on having as many local tradespeople that are available building our projects on these sites, because there's nothing better, I think, for a father or a mother building on a site, for example, where they might know that their family, their children, their grandchildren might be utilizing that program. And again, this is where public service comes in, which is kind of cool. But the pride that people will put into a project is paramount, and it is really multiplied or exemplified when they know that they're building something for their own community. It's a very heartwarming, I think, special time for me. And so I love walking sites, and I like getting dirty, and I don't have any problem with that whatsoever. And I've done it a few times here. I actually just got my vehicle. I just brought one of my vehicles in, so I'm going to be able to walk more of our sites. But for example, one of our counselors had asked me about some projects in their area, and the first suggestion I made was actually that we need to go out there and visibly, you walk the sites with me, you explain to me exactly what your thoughts are, and we can talk to some of the folks in the community, because the people that are living and working in these communities are the ones that know that area better than anybody else. And so it's very important that we always engage, I think, in the folks that are so heavily involved in our projects that way.
Yeah, I would agree. Get boots on the ground, show them around, and they get to actually see something tangible, what's being built in their area. It kind of gets everybody hyped up and pumped up to see it.
It is.
I know when a lot of new developments come, there's a lot of people in the area, like residents, that don't necessarily want new developments, whether it's multifamily apartments or other things. So to actually be able to show them that progress and how it's going to positively impact their community, sometimes that's the only way to do it.
Well, and we run into that a lot. I'll be honest. And NIMBY, or not in my backyard, is very common. I've dealt with that a lot on many other projects, even some of the procurement methodology and how we're delivering a project. Unfortunately, the internet today, for example, is great for accessing good, positive information. But in the same breath, you can access a lot of negative information as well that might not be accurate. And, for those that are not familiar with what we do, if they go down that wrong rabbit hole, they might be filled with information that isn't accurate. And I've run into that issue on our projects. So the best way I find to deal with those is to be as open and transparent as we possibly can, bring in the right people to explain what we're doing, hear the questions and frustrations people have. And I have to say that probably 9 times out of 10, it's not a matter of convincing them. It's a matter of demonstrating, that we are doing our very best, and that a lot of times at the end of the day, those issues go away because we're listening to them and we're reacting and dealing with those issues that they're bringing up. So that in itself is also something that is extremely rewarding. So in my job, I think you're kind of getting that feeling it's very much a people-oriented kind of job. You have to be because not one of the most important aspect of building any big public infrastructure project are the people.
Right.
And it doesn't matter whether you're a tradesperson or if you're in the C-suite level or whoever is in between, because everybody plays a huge role in the success of any of these projects.
Yeah, you need buy-in from the people, even though it may not be fully funded by the people. It may be government money. A little bit of both, but you need buy-in from the people. So obviously you take a very consultative approach to that and collaborative with the group.
And I would have to say, even if the funds are coming from government, well, who funded government?
It's
it always comes back to the taxpayer. They're the ones that are going to pay for it one way or the other.
Yeah, you're right. So when you came here from BC, were there certain projects that you have been tasked with right out of the gate? Obviously that we are in the midst of building a massive that north end waste water sewage treatment plant.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about what's happening there and also any other larger scale projects you've been tasked with?
Well, when I first arrived, within 5 days, the mayor had sent me a long laundry list of priorities, and there were about 25, and the top 5 were Newpick, as you said. And, of course, we're exciting because we're in the final phases of finishing off phase 1 of the project and heavily working on 2 and 3 is in the background as well. So we've got a lot of our design work, preliminary design work has been done.
Okay.
And I've toured the site for phase 1. ACON is the one that's delivering that project for us. And they're doing a wonderful job. The site is in great shape, and it's basically almost finished. So that was my number 1 priority, is all 3 of those. But in addition to that, of course, there are many other projects that are underneath that I'm also going to be brought into. So technically, I think you'll find that I'll be providing oversight and guidance on projects that are anything from $5 million and up. But I think we'll start at the multi-billion-dollar level, and then we'll work our way down from there. So there's lots of projects. Some of them, of course, have not been funded yet, and so we're working in that area as well as developing, I would say, new frameworks, government frameworks of how we're going to deliver the projects, how we're going to report on these projects, what sort of a resource-based scenario we're dealing with. Is it going to be somebody internally? Is it going to be somebody externally? What kind of specialists we're going to bring in? And of course, what's near and dear to me lately is artificial intelligence and how we're going to apply a generative AI or AI, deep learning or machine learning, on these projects through some new project management software that we're looking at right now.
Interesting. And I'm going to come back to that AI piece in a bit, because
Sure.
I know it's a passion thing for you, and it's obviously in the future in construction. And to be honest, it's not even in the future; it is now for sure. But one of the other questions I have is Winnipeg is like growing at a pretty rapid rate right now. Like I was looking at some stats earlier today. In 2020, we were at around 750,000 people. This year, it looks like we're pushing close to 1 million at about 950,000 people, which is pretty significant growth over a 5-year period. Some of that's due to immigration. Some of that's due to like internal migration within Canada, like people moving from, Vancouver, GTA, areas where maybe the cost of living is starting to get a little out of control, and they're moving to, friendly Manitoba, right? Because the cost of living is great. 10 years ago, you could drive around the perimeter and, not really see any houses. Today, all the houses are starting to like back up onto the perimeter. So it kind of seems like, we may need more infrastructure in terms of transportation infrastructure. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of new daycares that are being looked at, new schools, hospitals. Like, what would you say, in your opinion, are some of the priorities, like in the near future, in the next 5-10 years for Winnipeg that way?
Well, I think that what you've exemplified are where those pressures are going to be. And like you said, immigration and migration into the city is going up significantly. And of course, when that happens, what are they going to put pressure on? You're going to put pressure on the roads. You're going to put pressure on your fire protection services, your police services, your educational services, your water and sewer. All of these different services are essentially public infrastructure.
Right.
And because of that, you're right. And every single one of them is under pressure. And because of the planning that needs to go into this and understanding, as you said, that growth and where that growth is going to take place. The city has a huge role in determining where that development is going to take place because, of course, the infrastructure has to be there in order for the developers to go in and build whatever type of housing or residential facilities they are going to require. And then, of course, with that comes the industrialization and the commercialization that comes along with it as well. So you're absolutely right, and we are looking at certain areas in the city right now that we are determining are the best locations for that potential growth to take place. On a side note, Centerport is an incredible, I think, opportunity for a lot of businesses, a lot of manufacturing organizations that could set up shop there. Because the land has been accumulated and they have that land available. But once you put the industry in there, it's putting increased demand on that area as well. And so we need to understand where those growth areas are and ensure that we align all of our public infrastructure to support the growth that's going to take place for sure.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I agree with that. And what do you say to the people that maybe a little like skeptical of, new tech consulting, like new technology and consulting costs money from the city, right? And sometimes taxpayers are just like, we just want our potholes filled, Like Winnipeg has a bad rap for like having horrible roads. I'm not sure if you have heard that given your time here or not yet, but like, what do you say to that about like, obviously it's investment into the future, but there's always people that, they pay their taxes and they don't care about that. They want something fixed now.
Well, I think that one of the solutions for fixing some of those issues is through artificial intelligence. And I know that Councillor Lukes had brought this up and showcased some of the new technology in the smart car that they've now created, which is driving around and recording through AI all of the various potholes that we've located, or they're locating in the city, and able to quickly turn around and be able to action those potholes. I think the other thing you'll find that tech is actually, or new tech, is actually going to cut costs significantly. So I think you'll find that we'll have a better opportunity to more effectively manage our projects. We'll be able to identify more risks that we have before in real time as they're occurring or in advance. It's going to improve scheduling.
Yep.
So my estimate is that I would hope we're going to be able to cut costs some in the neighborhood of around 25% on a lot of these projects.
Wow.
Because of the investment which is not a large investment. These aren't. It's not billions of dollars to invest in AI, for example, to be able to obtain these cost savings. So there's massive benefits. I know the next question you're probably going to ask is, well, are we going to be losing people? I mean, because I know there's this whole concern about, if we apply AI, there's a loss in jobs. And honestly, I don't believe that for a second. I think that we need people that know how to effectively manage those AI tools. So there'll be a lot more training required for people at all different levels, whether you're in trades or if you're a project manager or an engineer or an architect. We've got so many different consultants and specialists and employees that are working on these projects. They're going to have to more effectively use the new tools that'll become available to them. But I think that once they do, we're going to be able to save a significant amount of not only money, but time. And what comes with that is potentially even the frustration of dealing with those issues when they aren't actually being handled properly, or if we're running into issues, including legal issues. Because of course, at the end of the day, if we're not getting what we need and it doesn't meet our contract, well, then you can go down the wrong rabbit hole and you get into lawsuits, et cetera, and that's not fun for anybody. We don't want to go down that road. So if we can help it, so I think you're going to find that those new tools are going to really benefit us on many, many, many different levels.
Yeah, no, I would agree, and you preemptively did answer my next question, so thanks for doing that. But part of me, I want to go back to that though about like AI replacing jobs, because it is a really interesting topic, specifically in construction, engineering, manufacturing. I think the first thing that AI came for was like computer engineering, like coding, for sure. But you're right, like it's not going to replace plumbers, carpenters, HVAC techs, all the trades that we need that build a construction site. But at the same time, we're already really short on those people. The whole labor market is short. Like, how do you feel like we can attract and retain people in the skilled trades, specifically in Winnipeg?
Well, I think the first way is by demonstrating that we have a lot of really good, positive work, long-term work for them as well. People don't like moving. I mean, nobody likes to move if they can help it. And so if we can demonstrate that we have work for them over the next 5 or 10 years where they can build the family, raise a family, and have a good solid job, good income over that long-term period of time, and that the community that they're going to be working in and living in meets their values and their beliefs, I think that you're going to find those sort of key issues are ones that are going to attract people. I think that excitement is something else that I think we truly need to positively showcase and demonstrate to people as well, that this is an innovative, proactive, growth-related community that is building on the future. I mean, people like to hear those sort of positive, upbeat sort of ideas. So again, back to Centerport, I know I keep going back to them, but I drive around there and I look at the Boeings and I look at all of the other industries that are positioned there, and the growth that might be there, could be there, it will be there. And then I look at the new national initiatives we're doing through the Canada First Economy initiative that Prime Minister is introduced. I'm looking at the new energy corridor that they want to put in across Canada. We've got the Port of Churchill, which has got some excellent positive feedback from a north-south perspective, and providing that. To me, Winnipeg is positioned to be possibly one of the most exciting cities in Canada to move to now, in advance of all the potential growth that is going to come our way. I think it's an exciting time. I think when you look at supply chains for manufacturing, we are positioned better than anybody, being literally in the middle of the country with access to ports on the East Coast, on the West Coast, and then with the North, and then into the South, direct into the South to our American markets. I think we are incredibly well positioned to do a lot of great work for this country, and I couldn't think of a better place to be, quite frankly, right now. I'm really excited about what we can do here, both at a municipal and a provincial level, and of course at a federal level. I think the Prime Minister's done an amazing job at bringing and uniting this country together. I was just reading this morning about, you've got two Conservative premiers that have gone on and on, so positive about the work he's doing, and I think now is a paramount. There's never been a more important time in our lives than right now to action that, and I think Winnipeg is very well positioned to be able to support and carry that forward.
Yeah, absolutely. I would agree. You're such a good brand ambassador for the city. That's for sure. You say good things about it.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I believe in it, and I've only been here for 3 months. So.
That's great. Now, one of the things that I've noticed about you just sitting here for the last 30, 40 minutes is and I can recognize this in people because I do it. I self-evaluate a lot, and I feel like you do as well. And part of me, I think it's a double-edged sword because it allows you to see the really good things, but then myself personally, I also have intrusive thoughts and a bit of negative self-talk. Like me, I would personally probably never go back to school right now and do a new education. Oh. But you, on the other hand, you're doing a PhD in AI, and you're also writing or authoring 2 books as we speak. So obviously you're a believer in lifelong learning. And how AI is going to impact our future for the positive. So I kind of want to start to talk about that. What made you want to go back to school and write 2 books? And how do you have the time to do that?
Well, I'll be honest with you. I've always enjoyed learning,
okay.
Especially when I hit my mid-30s. That's when I really started to kick into gear. And because one thing I found that the learning I had done earlier was kind of old school, and things kept changing, and there was new topics and new ideas, et cetera, et cetera. And so I have a number of graduate degrees already, an MBA and an MSc, and a graduate in public sector, and my PMP, of course, project management professional. Mm-hmm. But now that I've done a couple of master's degrees, I had thought of doing a PhD, and I put it off for quite some time. But to be honest with you, it just seemed like the right time to start doing it. And I've always gone to school while I worked, so this is nothing new to me. I'm quite used to getting up at 5:30 or 6 in the morning, and working later at night, and then working on weekends. So my family's been very supportive of me in years past on that, but once you get continuous learning in your blood, be honest with you, it's kind of hard to stop. Mm. And again, I think I said this earlier, I want to leave the world a better place. And to me, one of the ways I can give back is through writing, a few books, applying my lessons learned, and then also from my learnings today, and then looking at how that would work and can be applied going forward in my area of work, which, as you said, I'm doing a doctorate in generative AI applications in project management, and writing 2 books. One of them is largely looking at public infrastructure and where we've kind of gone sideways, and where AI will be able to help bring that back up to speed and be able to more successfully deliver. And then another one is a little more academic, where I'm taking it's referred to in about complexity, and it's dealing with a lot of the visionaries over the last 100 years and what their thought processes were, and how they're actually aligned very nicely with the learnings we're getting from applying artificial intelligence today. So wow. There's history, but it's bringing it into today's world. So it's very exciting. And then, of course, from that, I'm able to apply that in my day-to-day work. So it's a win-win literally for both sides, because what I am learning is also being applied almost on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah. Yeah, well, you mentioned earlier, this is your lifestyle. This isn't just a job for you. It's a lifestyle, right? Yes. So I could totally understand that. Now, tell me talk to me like I'm a 5-year-old for a minute, and tell me what generative AI means and what does it do for construction.
Well, there's three different areas of AI that we talk about. There's what we call deep learning, machine learning, and then the last one is generative AI. And
Right.
what they're essentially doing is it's all based on numbers, the numeric system.
Okay.
And they're using algorithms. And this is why you need these massive data centers, because they're computing things numerically using these formulas, these algorithms, to be able to compute and come up with answers. They digitize everything, and then from the digitization, we can take a visual of you and digitize you, or digitize a letter, or a number, or any photograph, for example, and we can digitize that information to be able to then take that and be able to provide answers and solutions back to us. Now, I know it's a little complicated from that perspective.
So how do you feel like, you said you can, you're basically allocating that in your life every day through your experiences, right?
Mm-hmm.
What can you do with that that's going to change the industry in the near future and short term and long term?
Perfect. Okay, so there's a variety of things. The first one I would say is what we're calling governance frameworks, good governance. And so we can actually run algorithms to evaluate a project. We can evaluate the reporting structures. We can evaluate the information in those reports to see if it's accurate information. We can evaluate in real time through other information if there's problems occurring that could potentially impact the project. It could be the weather. It could be politics. It could be supply chain management, etc. We can evaluate price escalation literally in seconds of real time. So there's now information out there today that tracks every commodity. Mm-hmm. And so if a commodity increases in price, it could have a huge impact on our ability for supplies and materials that are going to a site. So we can actually monitor that information. And if there are any price escalations, we will in real time be able to identify what those are and what the cost impact for price escalation might be on a project. We can look at quality control. We can take a picture of a site, for example, and we could take a picture of a room or a wall, and we can identify potential deficiencies that are in that room or that wall well in advance of that wall being finished. We can use what's called 3D laser scanning, where we can take the measurements of the site, which we have through our as-built drawings, and we can take those dimensions and we can shoot and scan a 3D laser, and identify in minuscule form if there's any issues or complications with what was being built, structurally or civilly, etc. So if there's any issues impacting the dimensions on a site, we can immediately see what those are. Now, what does that mean? That means that normally, in the past, we wouldn't find out about a lot of these problems until they actually became a problem, which might be 3, 4, 5, 10 years after the project was finished. This way, in real time, we can identify what those issues and concerns are immediately, and by doing that, we can make changes effective immediately that will help to improve the finished design in the project. That saves incredible amount of time, costs, because you're doing it, and it's a lot cheaper to do it when you've got the bare bones of a site there versus having to do it once the drywall's up and everything's finished, for example.
Right.
And so all of those different factors, legalities, and the frustration, because you're going to have the owner's representatives that are going to get frustrated because the site isn't done properly, and of course you got the builder that's done it, and they'll be pointing fingers because they're going to be looking at ways to mitigate the issues they're dealing with. So if we can address a lot of those issues early on in the evolution or transition of a project as it's being built, it's going to save us a significant amount of time and money. It's huge.
Huge.
And
Yeah,
I'm just hitting the tip of the iceberg of some of these issues. There's so many others that we'll be able to deal with going forward because of the applications we're learning on applying AI.
okay. How far into the future do you feel like we're away from implementing these types of things? Like, are we talking months, a few years?
Well, some of them we're actually implementing right now.
Okay.
Literally right now. And so, these books that I'm writing are in real time as well. So it's pretty exciting because, I'm talking to individuals that are actually implementing this work or are designing this work, or I'm part of helping others. And again, through the internet, I've got connections on this type of work that are not only throughout Canada, but they're in the United States. They're over in Australia. They're in Europe. I've got a very good colleague, one in Denmark and the other in Germany. That I'm collaborating with on some work right now. And so this is one of the other neat things that we see today that you didn't have 15 or 20 or 30 years ago. The internet has really brought us all together in real time, and so we're able to maximize and utilize all of the different individuals throughout the world in real time. The other thing that we can do, which is exciting, is through AI, we have access through the internet to almost every piece of digitized information that ever existed.
Right.
And so that gives us all, essentially with asking the right questions, because it's all about prompt engineering. When you're asking the right questions, you have literally the world's information at your fingertips.
That's true. It's this, like, these new technologies are obviously very cutting edge right now, especially for an industry like construction. I feel like, and you may have a different opinion on this, but I feel like construction's kind of been late in the game to implement a lot of innovation that, you're right, saves a lot of time. Time is money, as we know, and I think it would speed a lot of projects up. I don't think anything frustrates taxpayers more than project delays and projects going over budget. And it sounds like this type of AI implementation that you're talking about is hopefully going to solve both those issues moving forward.
It's certainly going to make things much better. Will it be 100% perfect? I doubt it very much.
Right.
But everything that you've outlined there and more are things that are very near and dear to any of us that are in the delivery of projects, because we want them to be successful. We certainly, don't go out there and design and build to have issues and problems. So, it's going to make many of our jobs that much, I would say, easier to have those tools, as long as you know how to apply those tools.
Right.
And again, like we said earlier, a lot of that comes down to the people, because it's still the people. The humanistic approach is paramount with AI. It has to be. But they will be the ones implementing the information they're gaining, the lessons learned they're getting through the applications of AI. And so, organizational behavior and people is still paramount, and we need to ensure that that folks have the right core capabilities, the leadership qualities, and the understanding to be able to apply these lessons learned in the best fashion possible. Right.
Earlier, Tom, you mentioned, you've got for sure another 5 years or so in this job. In your definition of success, what would that look like over the next 3 to 5 years in this position? Like, what do you want to have accomplished by the time you're, ready to hang them up?
I would say, from a people perspective, I would like to see the citizens of Manitoba, or I should say of Winnipeg especially, being very pleased with the work that the city's doing in these areas of infrastructure. So, and like you said before, you've raised them yourself, the improvement on the quality of the roads, the efficiency of the systems and programs and services, the availability of infrastructure to support growth in the communities, whether it's the roads or the bridges or, the water and sewer, and of course we don't directly deliver, but, the electrical systems that, Manitoba Hydro's providing, some of the other provincial programs that are directly impacted through the City of Winnipeg. So I would hope, and I'm striving, I should say, for to make these improvements to help ensure that we are improving the quality of life for all Winnipeggans. And, I think a lot of Manitobans eventually come through Winnipeg one way or the other. And so, I think for all Manitobans and, Canadians in general.
Yeah, absolutely. This has been great, Tom. We're at an hour now, and I definitely want to have a part 2 with you because I feel like there's a lot of topics we didn't touch on today. But I wanted to give our listeners an introduction to the first ever, not only Winnipeg, but you mentioned Canada, Chief Construction Officer. Thanks so much for joining us.
Well, thanks so much for having me. Really enjoyed chatting with you today. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Tom.